That is, the point is, when you think about substitutes and complements, that is, in these production problems, at least in the two-factor case, the substitution effect, not surprisingly, tends to make them substitutes, and the scale effect tends to make them complements. And so the question of whether the two inputs are going to come out to be substitutes or complements depends critically on the magnitude of those two effects. How much substitution there is, more likely to be substitutes. How much output scale effect there is, more likely to be complements. And that's really useful for thinking about substitute complement problem more generally. Remember early in the quarter when we talked in consumption, we talked about, like tires and, cars, and we talked about cars and car maintenance, we talked about coffee, and we talked about all these examples. They're really all just examples of this problem. That is, there's a scale effect, like how many people are fans of the baseball team. That's the scale effect. The substitution effect is, given you were a fan, were you going to watch on TV or watch at the game? Right? Everybody see how that plays out, substitution and scale effects? What tended to make the TV game and the in-person game complements was the scale effect. That if you made one of them cheaper, more people would be interested and they would do more of both. Just like if you made labor cheaper, they'd produce more output and they would need more capital and more labor. Okay? So that substitution and scale effect story lies behind most stories we have about complements and substitutes, and why it's a complicated question, because depending on the circumstance and depending on the horizon, the mix of substitution and scale effects can be different. That is, some can be dominated by scale effects, some might be dominated by substitution effects. And another way you could bring that in is to allow the elasticity of demand to be different in the short run and the long run. That is, demand might be more elastic in the long run, might be less elastic in the short run. Bring that into the problem. Same is true on the substitution side. The sigma may depend on the short run versus the long run. That is, the amount I can substitute, how much I'm tied to a particular technology, could be different in the short run and the long run. Okay? Any questions that people have?